Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Let's try this again. Welcome to the Game Week 4 pod of the FPL Wire, powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend Big Man Bakar, also known as Mr. Roboto. How are you, Bakar?
As of, I hope this is working right now.
It is now.
Um, it's it was an eventful break. Firstly, it feels great to be back after 2 weeks. I mean, Game Week 3 now seems like a distant memory. We've been used to doing this week in week out to the extent now that whenever even a 10 day break or a 14-day break comes along, we think as if it's been forever. So firstly, it feels great to be back. Game week 3, I actually had to check my score. I didn't actually even remember
I
what
don't remember
exactly
what my
was my
score
score.
was.
Exactly. So I got 59 points last week. Unfortunately, Bruno, captain, let me down. Other than that, it was an average game week for me. Nothing too special. But yeah, I enjoyed the break. I went to the capital city. I was on a bit of a vacation. Went up to the mountains. Um, Took some time off. Much needed break. Slept through most of my time alone, but it was great fun.
he's just he's just baiting us. First of all, he says took some, then there's a pause.
Words.
Nice one.
Good to be back. Good to be
I
back.
mean, he's
Good to be back.
preempted our responses now a little bit. No, you realize that he's conditioned.
Zoph?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, don't worry, the audio will come back. Might drop off on and it'll come back. What about you, LR? How are you doing? Good to see you again.
Yeah, you have no idea how happy I am to just chat with the both of you today because it's been pretty grim at home for the past 10 days. So just been looking forward to chatting with the both of you all week and enjoyed India's performance. We have a lot of English listeners, so it's our job and duty to mention that we did beat them and we're leading 2-1 in the test series. It was a great spell from Jasprit Bumrah. I just wanted to put that in. And yeah, looking forward to chatting FPL. Let's get stuck in.
Let's get stuck in. Let's do our sponsor plugs first. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. You can find links to the products in the description below. They're also tying up with some top-notch Premier League clubs, which we will announce shortly.
Also, we are partners with Fantasy Football Scout. All the stats that you see on the podcast are from Fantasy Football Scout. If you aren't a member already, what are you waiting for? Click on the link in the description below and join FFS. It's totally worth it. And we have also set up a league. If you haven't joined our league, the code is GKTIYM. So make sure you're joining our leagues, and we're going to be announcing the prizes shortly. All right, then, Zoph, there's a little bit of a player who's joined Manchester United who we're going to be talking about first. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, there's literally been no coverage about him joining. It sort of went under the radar, didn't it? You know what? I had a tweet ready when there were rumors about Ronaldo ready to join Man City that Man United fans can finally agree that that Messi is better than Ronaldo. I'm so happy I didn't post that. I would have gotten so much shit for it when the move went through. Right. So these are his numbers from his time at Juventus, and generally it's for the last 6-7 years. And what's alarming here is the consistency, right? You look at the number of shots. You're talking about 5 shots, 6 shots, 5 shots, 6 shots. So an average of 5.5 over the last 4 seasons. And an XG per 90, I think 0.96, 0.91, 0.78 over the last 3 years. This, of course, includes penalties. But what's noticeable is he doesn't really rely on assists much. 0.12, 0.19, 0.17, 0.22. He's an out-and-out goal scorer. Anything about these numbers you guys would like to point out?
Yeah, so the thing worth pointing out is the remarkable consistency in his underlyings per 90. I mean, averaging 0.9 xg per 90 is insane. It's really good. I mean, we know that he's a shot hogger wherever he's been, whether it's been at Madrid, whether it's been at UA. He's been playing centrally for the best part of last 8-9 years now. He's been playing with a strike partner. I was having a chat with Gianni Buttici, and I asked him I was very interested in his opinion of Ronaldo because he's somebody who watches the Serie A as well as the Premier League closely, and a couple of points that he mentioned kind of stood out. And one thing is that he's played with a striker in that last season in Pirlo's team at Juventus. He played with Dybala in a 4-2-4, and Gianni mentioned that he's been used to playing with a striker like Benzema, Dybala, Morata for a huge chunk of the last 5-6 years. And these guys, Dybala, Morata, Benzema, they're used to making great off the ball runs. Now this is something we'll need to see what happens at United, because if you can bring out the shot map, Utkarsh, the next one. Yeah, so you can see that he's in and around the box most of the time. But what Gianni mentioned is that when the team is losing, or let's say it's 0-0 at halftime, he tends to show his old past habits a lot, where he tends to drift into the left. He drifts in a little deeper, asks for the ball. And then if you see the shot map, there's a lot of shots that are coming from the left hand side of the space as well. So this is something worth monitoring. And in terms of analysis and what conclusion you draw from him, I think it depends on how United use him and how he sort of develops an understanding and a relationship with his players first. But given that the next three fixtures that we have, and United generally in the final third, I think what Ole has done well with us is he set us up well defensively. He set us up making sure that everybody is disciplined, holding their position defensively. In attack, we are very dependent on talent. And in that game against Newcastle at home, there is the news came out today that he's been training, and he got his first session in today. So I'm I'll be very surprised if he's not starting that game against Newcastle United. I think you just put him in because of the amount of shots he takes. And there's been a little bit of a conversation in terms of what happens in terms of creativity. I mean, we've got Bruno, who's the league's top chance creator last season. Greenwood, who's playing on the right, is improving quite sharply when it comes to the chance creation that he's been doing. I've seen the first three games, and I've seen a couple of preseason games. Greenwood is currently maturing very, very quickly as a player. So I don't think chance creation will be an issue. Shaw's delivery from the left is great. Pogba, who's playing on the left, his delivery is great. We don't know whether Pogba is going to be playing on the left or he's going to be playing in the pivot, and Sancho is going to be playing in the left. On that right wing spot, I think Greenwood is ahead of Sancho at the moment based on performance. I don't see Ole changing that. But whether Ronaldo should be in, I think the hysteria, the player that he's into numbers as well. He's sort of like a showman as well, right? So he'll he's a proper showman as well. So I'm going in, getting in Ronaldo once Ole sort of gives us a confirmation on Friday. And yeah, I think you get him in and then see what happens after 3 game weeks.
So you're not worried about how he'll settle into the attack, not a wait and watch. I think Bakar's conveniently disappeared. He'll wait for him to come back.
I can hear you right
Yeah.
now. So.
And a lot of people.
Yeah, I can hear you. Just in time.
A lot of people are talking about fitness and all of that. By the way, I can't hear Bakar. Huh? A lot of people are talking about fitness and how much he'll have to play and all of that. I mean, Ronaldo is not exactly a press merchant. He's not your Bobby Firmino who's going to be clocking 7, 8, 9 kilometers in a game and making sure he's pressing. He's just loitering around in that area up front. He doesn't need too much fitness, and he's played 90 minutes for Portugal. So I'm not worried about his match sharpness.
That's right. Yeah, match sharpness isn't an issue. He looked pretty good, and fitness-wise, he's always going to be up there. And how else is he going to get in sync with the team without playing with them? It's not off-season where you're going to get like friendly matches to get up to speed with the team. You pretty much have to get going. You have to hit the ground running. So I think we'll see him in the team starting. I'm pretty confident as well. I'm just just hang on. I'm just going to try to get Bakar in. So what I'll do is I'll get us started on the next section, where he just start us talking about the Bramble teams, and then we figure out how to get Bakar's window running.
Right. Cool. So this is something that I've been monitoring since the past couple of seasons where I have a certain style of playing where I like to switch the big hitters, etc. And this is where you try to read the room, and we're going to be discussing a little bit of meta FPL strategy. Now, what I've done in this table is I've tracked the performances of certain big hitters, and what you see in front of you is the data from half of the 2019-20 season, where you are seeing the points per 90 of all these big hitters against three different calibers of opposition. Now, the color of teams are the good teams there, your Liverpool, Chelsea, etc. The Lescott teams are the middling teams, and the Bramble teams are the poor teams. And as you can see, there's a considerable points difference in their performance against these three calibers of opposition. And this simply tells us that fixtures matter. What also it tells us is that certain players respond differently to the fixtures. For example, you can see in this table that Jamie Vardy averaged 16 points against per 90 against Bramble opposition. So he's a proper flat track bully. He's showing this trend right across 2019-20 and 2020-21 as well. And what you can see here is KDB is scoring the highest points against Lescott opposition, which is the middling opposition. Now, what you're seeing here is he's sort of more fixture proof compared to the other big hitters. If you can move on to the next tables off.
Sure.
Yep. Now, I continue this research, and what you see here is the full table from the 2019-2020 season. And what you can see here is that the big hitters, this is what you see here is goals plus assists per 90 minutes. Now, the big hitters against the tough opposition are averaging 0.5 goals plus assists per 90. They're averaging 0.6 goals plus assists per 90 against middling opposition, and they're averaging 1 goal plus assist per 90 against weaker teams. And this is obvious, and this is the basis of the meta strategy that I like to play. It's how I like to play the game in terms of shifting the big hitters, and there are a lot of layers involved in this sort of a strategy because different big hitters, like I mentioned earlier as well, they behave differently. For example, City were the best team in the league, so they are slightly more fixture proof. Again, you can see KDB has a goals plus assists per 90 average of 1 against tougher teams, which tells us that he's fairly fixture proof. And he's got great numbers against weaker opposition as well. So this is what you try to analyze, you try to read the room. And I saw this table in the 2019-2020 season, and I thought I'd apply it into the 2020-21 season, and I thought I'd copy paste that strategy and see if it works in the new season. And simply put, Zoph, if we can move on to the next table, it didn't work. And why it didn't work is because you can see Kane and Son's numbers versus the Lescott opposition. They were great. That Manchester United game comes to mind, and you couldn't hop on, hop off when it came to the big hitters in this season because there were only four, who got the assist has pointed out, there were only 4 big hitters who crossed the 200-point mark. So there was no scope to shift these big hitters. We didn't have a Chelsea big hitter in play. We didn't have a Manchester City big hitter in play. Manchester City scored 20 goals fewer than usual in the previous season as well. So the discussion here is when you're trying to take a step back and decide how you want to play into the season, this is the kind of information that you monitor and monitor it closely. At the moment, we've got 2 new big hitters in play. That's Lukaku and Ronaldo. We don't know how Pep is going to be playing this season. I don't think you can take the Norwich and Arsenal game into consideration because, the Norwich game was a Norwich game. Arsenal were down to 10 men and they were without half their defensive core anyway because there was no White, there was no Partey, there was no Gabriel as well. So when it comes to assessing these big hitters, I think you don't draw any conclusions at the moment. I don't think you decide that, you know what, this season I'm going to shift the big hitters and play upside chasing and chase these big hauls because they're going to do well against easier opposition. Right now, all we're doing is speculating. We don't know what's going to happen, and I don't think you draw any conclusions at the moment, which is a great segue into the next section when we're going to be talking about the wildcards. But my assumption, my speculation is that I think Ronaldo is going to be great against the weaker teams. I think he's going to be a proper flat track bully. And I think he's not going to be great against the better teams. And that's not because of Ronaldo. That's because United aren't as mature as a team as Chelsea and Manchester City and Liverpool, in my opinion. I think these 3 teams are better. So I think the big hitters from these 3 teams, whether it's Salah or Lukaku, I think they'll be slightly more fixture proof. So these are just assumptions that we're making at the moment. I think we should revisit this around the game week 8-9 mark and see how they perform. But again, that's not enough data. So yeah, just a little bit of meta discussion when it came to the big hitters. What's your thinking there?
I think Bakar, do we have you working now in audio? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear both of you. Yeah.
Anything to contribute on the whole Ronaldo big hitter discussion?
Personally, he's coming in for me. All I needed to see was confirmation whether or not he'd be available for this game week, and it looks like he's already clocked a training session today. So if he's looking likely to start, he's gonna be my captain this week. I'm confident about him because of his fixtures. Game week 4 and game week 6 are the two fixtures I've handpicked for Ronaldo captaincy this in these 2 weeks. Particularly this week, I think if I was Cristiano Ronaldo and if I was handpicking a fixture, this would exactly be it. Because given how Newcastle have performed, okay, I know it's a limited sample size, but Newcastle have conceded the second most amount of chances down the middle. United have created the most number of chances down the middle. Newcastle are second worst for XG conceded, big chances conceded. They're conceding loads of shots. This is exactly the kind of game Ronaldo is going to haul in my opinion. If he starts, he's going to haul. And you look at the odds are heavily favoring him. I've never seen such favorable odds for any player to score in a given game week, which is why I think he's a really good option this week. And the other thing is that I really like Lukaku as well this week, but the reason why I prefer Ronaldo is because of the next two fixtures. In game week 6 in particular, Ronaldo, in my opinion, is the best captaincy option. Okay, so the counter argument to this, before you play devil's advocate, is that Salah has Leeds this week, and he has Brentford in game week 6 as well, right? But those two fixtures are away, and I'm not too convinced whether Salah will haul in both of these fixtures. Brentford have conceded just the one big chance in 3 games in the first 3 fixtures, so I assume that would be a tough game for Liverpool. I don't think that will be a game in which Salah will haul too massively. Similarly, Leeds have done reasonably well against the top 4 at home last season, and I think they'll give Liverpool a good game, which is why I just simply think Ronaldo is the way to go, because he has serious haul potential in both of these fixtures.
What is your thought in general about big hitters? Do you think it's a season to hop on, hop off, or if you're on Wildcard now, would you go for 3?
I think going with 2 is the way to go, Zoph. I think the 2 you choose, I think the optimal combination at this point in time is to probably pick Salah and Ronaldo, given how the fixtures are shaping up. But generally, what you want to do is to have one premium midfield slot at least and one forward slot to begin with this season, this stage of season. I mean, premiums are likely to be the frequent point scorers. Why I like the 2 premiums is because I think it sort of reduces the over reliance on the third premium to perform, particularly when you're not going to captain the third premium. Because if you're not captaining the third premium, then that puts a lot of pressure on and a lot of over dependence on the third premium, plus the other budget enabler you get in from him to deliver. The cost of basically picking a third, the opportunity cost of picking a third premium player is basically to ignore a very legit mid-priced options such as Antonio or Calvert-Lewin, or even Trent for that matter, and I just simply think that these are the kind of budget players who are likely to deliver in combination. At the moment, I'm struggling to make a team or find a team which I like with 3 heavy hitters, because I simply don't like the sacrifices that you make elsewhere. Just pick one premium midfield slot, one forward slot, and keep rotating depending on how the fixtures fall.
So the wait and watch argument to wait with Lukaku last time was specifically related to the fixtures, right? That's the differentiating factor.
Yes, exactly. I have no doubts regarding his ability to do well. I am sure that he'll do really, really well, and he'll be a very popular fantasy asset this season. But the wait and watch argument is basically wait till game week 7 before you invest in him.
I got you, but cool. There's some other stats you sent us. You wanted to read across. This is now relating to home and away, and I think this is relevant because Ronaldo has 3 out of his next 4 games at Old Trafford.
This is it. This is it, Zoph. Now the counter argument to not owning Ronaldo in game week 4 and 6 is perhaps to captain Salah this week or Salah in Game Week 6, and I mentioned that Brentford and Leeds aren't likely to be as good fixtures as people might think they are on paper. And then again, when you notice the fact that both those games, Leeds and Brentford for Salah, are away, you can see the numbers. Almost 38% of the goals this season have been scored away, while 62% have come in home fixtures. I know these numbers are a bit skewed because Man City have won 5-0 twice at home, but this trend has been continuing before COVID as well. So this is why I think that Ronaldo has more upside than someone like Salah.
Right, home captaincy is definitely a thing, and this is something now interesting.
Exactly.
I want to mention
And
about
Lukaku
Bruno.
has sorry to cut you off, but Lukaku has City in Game Week 6, which is why I think Ronaldo is a better play. Honestly, I can see Lukaku scoring against Tottenham as well, but the problem with him is Game Week 6, and that is why I think someone like Calvert-Lewin could potentially even match him over the next 3 fixtures.
Let's just talk about Bruno Fernandes a little bit, because he's the one probably making way for a lot of people to accommodate Ronaldo. You have a stat over here. Why don't you read it out for us, for our audio listeners?
Yep. For the benefit of our listeners, I did some stat digging this week. So Bruno Fernandes, without penalties this calendar year, has just 6 big chances in 24 starts. 20 midfielders in the league have actually fared better than him. For XG from open play, 13 midfielders are better off than him, and even for chances created. Now, this is a stat which I found very surprising. Ever since Shaw has started to hog the corners, Bruno's chances created ratio has significantly worsened. And even though he is creating chances at a decent clip, and he's still right up there in terms of chances created and big chances created, that frequency of the chance creation has gone down. And that is because of the fact that he's lost the set pieces. And in fact, 8 midfielders now have a better chance created per 90 ratio than Bruno Fernandes. This is why I think with the loss of penalties, he loses a lot of his appeal. And I don't think he's worth the 12 million.
Interesting. LR, why don't you tell us, as a United fan, what's your thinking? What's going to happen with Bruno as a fantasy asset?
See, at the moment, the honest truth, can you hear me? Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, and can Bakar hear me?
I can't.
No, Bakar and me are just having a proper disconnect today. Anyway, so I'll continue anyway. What's happening is that when we play, like I mentioned a couple of pods ago, when we play with a striker that's Cavani, the way we play is completely different compared to when we play with a Martial or a Greenwood as a striker, because Greenwood likes to come a little deep. Greenwood likes to drift a little. So does Martial. He tends to come drip. He's sort of like an interlinking striker. He tends to drift also on the wings. And because of that happening, what we saw in preseason, that's something that's continued at the start of the season as well, where Bruno occupies the center spaces and he makes runs beyond. And this is something that's become a part of his game pretty much this season, where he's making a lot of runs beyond the striker. He made a lot of runs beyond Greenwood, which is something we saw in the first game week. We also saw that offside goal that he scored against Wolves as well, where he made the run beyond the last striker. Now, I don't know if something like this is going to happen when Ronaldo is playing as a striker. And at the moment, we can make a lot of assumptions. And this is something that FPL mentions, where us as content creators, we're actually creating narratives and making stories here. And we are speculating at the end of the day. But what is going on in Ole's thinking, what is going on in Ronaldo's thinking, how the players are going to adapt to this little change, we don't know at the moment. Which is why I'm happy to leave Ronaldo in my team at the moment. And the pure reason why I'm leaving Ronaldo in is A, hysteria, and B, talent. United has too much talent on that pitch to not score a few against Newcastle. And I think they will be playing into Ronaldo. I think they will all buy into the hype. All the players are very excited with Ronaldo coming in. But functionally, how will it work? I don't know. How much tactical input will have gone into this game, I don't know. We saw with Thomas Tuchel and Lukaku's first game, where he just threw Lukaku in the game and he said that do what you want. I'm not going to give you tactical instructions at the moment. That is something we'll come to know over a period of 6-7 game weeks, where players have had time to adapt to the game. At the moment, it's speculation. But I think because of the caliber of the player, the amount of shots he takes, which is the stats we discussed at the top of the game, I'm just going to throw him in at the moment. I don't even know if this is going to reduce Bruno's appeal at the moment. But I think the run of fixtures for United is the next 3. I think most of us are going to jump off United assets after game week 7. I'm just happy to go with Ronaldo. I think he's going to keep pens as well.
Okay, so I have a question here for you, Zoph and Pranil. Now that we're discussing Bruno and Ronaldo, a lot of FPL managers find themselves in this predicament. Would you sell Bruno for a hit to accommodate Ronaldo? Because that's a
That's
very
probably
commonly
what
asked
I'm.
question. For a
Probably
hit is
what I'm.
the question I'm asking. Would you do it for a hit?
Pranil, could you hear what Bakar said?
Yes.
So at least that's fixed now. Thank God, I don't have to
Yeah.
keep doing that Chinese whispers
Yeah.
every time. So yeah. So I think you already have a structure in place not to bring in for a hit, right? Would you be against somebody doing that,
No, I
doing the
wouldn't be against
switcheroo
somebody.
for a
I
hit?
wouldn't be against. I wouldn't be against it because I think it's the first of many tough decisions this season. A lot of big hitters are in play, but my estimate is Ronaldo's. You saw that shot map. He's in and around the box. He's going to become the focal point. He is the shot hogger. He's going to get 5-6 shots a game. I'm willing to bet on Ronaldo.
I agree. And see, the thing is, we've seen a lot of analysis this week. Black Box did a great job in terms of analyzing the supply line. But ultimately, I think United are a side that are going to score goals. I think they were the second or third highest scorers in the league last season. And what concerns me is now you guys have actually, now you have Cavani in your books. You have Greenwood, who's also a striker. You think certain games, maybe when you're chasing games, he drops to something like a 4-4-2, in which Bruno becomes one of those central midfielders?
Again, we don't know.
We
Like I
don't know,
mentioned,
right?
we don't know. The only reason I'm putting him in is because this is the right time to get him because the fixtures stiffen after the next 3 game weeks. So I don't want to lose out. Like you mentioned, so many times you say 10 years later, I don't want to be the guy that didn't get Ronaldo for his home debut game week 4 when he was coming back to the Premier League. It's something I don't want to miss out on. I'm willing to take that chance. I'm playing this game also for fun, and I don't think I can watch the game on Saturday without
Me neither.
him not
I just
not
you
being in
need
my
to
team.
read something like you
Honestly,
play for these moments, right? You need these
Yeah.
moments to enjoy. Sorry, Bakar.
I mean, keeping nostalgia and you know this romance with Ronaldo aside, I personally feel as if the hit is likely to pay off as well. It's simply because I don't think Bruno will be as strong an option anymore, and I think Ronaldo with penalties, given the amount of penalties United get now, this is another pertinent point that United have had on average over the past 3 seasons almost 12 penalties, right, on average. So that's a huge amount. Those goals, if Ronaldo scores those goals, that's a huge swing in his favor, which will go against Bruno. And the second thing is that and another pertinent point regarding this is that Newcastle have actually conceded a penalty in all 3 of their games this season. So if that happens again, then I don't
Stole
want to
the
be
words out of my mouth, Bakar.
um, as a Bruno owner or a captainer watching Cristiano Ronaldo take it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You literally stole the words out of my mouth. But again, I do want to make the point though that if certain people are not driven into the hysteria and are against taking a -4, I don't think it's an incorrect decision to hold on to a Bruno. I don't think it's an incorrect decision. I think Salah is a great captaincy option this week. I think Leeds fixture suits Liverpool a lot. I think Bruno is a good captaincy option this week. I think Lukaku is a fabulous captaincy option this week. So if certain people are, it depends on the way you play the game. So if certain people are not wanting to spend transfers on their big hitters, have other fires to take care of in their team, and they're going for Lukaku as a more long-term asset because long game week 7 onwards, you're going to need a Lukaku. Is this an incorrect decision to go without Ronaldo? No. Because at the end of the day, what you are telling, Bakar, what I'm saying, what Zoph is saying, it's a narrative. It's not a fact because the
Correct.
fact is we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it a no-brainer, Bakar, bringing in Ronaldo this week?
For me, it is personally.
I know, but yeah, like you said, I think we were discussing this earlier. So Bruno always figures out a way to get some points. It's not like Ronaldo is coming he's not going to get goals or assists. Bruno is also kind of guy who measures his output in goals and assists.
And this thing that Pranil was mentioning that he usually plays with a runner. I mean, if Bruno does take on that role of a runner, then you never know his open play goal threat might improve significantly. You never know. I mean, these are the kind of things which are hard to predict. I mean, now this depends on your reading of the game as a football fan or NFL manager. You know, this is not the kind of thing we can sort of sit here and predict with any kind of accurate assumptions or anything.
Yeah, and even we'll take our time with the discussion because we're finally getting into a little bit of a groove after a little bit of a hiccup at the start. But even when it comes to how much United improve as a team, I don't think it is massive. I think we had a good thing going in our attack. Greenwood was clicking in the center of the attack. When we were linked with Ronaldo, the day one of us being linked with him, my first tweet was, it makes no sense. If we are to spend some money on a player, yeah, it should be a defensive midfielder, because I think that's a transformative move for Manchester United as a team, because I think that improves us more drastically than a Ronaldo would. But am I buying into the hysteria, and am I saying, yeah, this is a lot of fun, and it is it fun as a Manchester United fan? Yes, it is. And are we going to score a lot more goals? Yes, because Ronaldo takes a lot of shots. He's better than Cavani. Let's not deny that. He's better than Cavani in that central striker position. And Sancho will take his time to get into the team. Greenwood is getting a sharp growth curve in this team. So yeah, we'll improve, but I don't think we'll improve drastically. Just wanted to add that.
Correct. I think it wouldn't like the Wolves game. I don't think Ronaldo would have made a big difference in that game because your problem was getting the ball to Ronaldo. If he, let's say, he would have been playing that game. So
yeah, but I think the next 3 games are going to be different to the Wolves game.
yeah,
I think
absolutely
Newcastle
agree.
will sit back a
Absolutely
lot more. So the Newcastle kind of game, I think, plays into a Ronaldo kind of a fixture.
That's why I think he's very likely to start also for that reason, because it's almost like the easiest opponents you could ask for. You don't want to start him against West Ham, who are definitely a
Correct.
much more stiff opposition at their own stadium than Newcastle are. So I think it's a perfect game to give him some minutes, get some confidence going.
But what I'll just say to people, wait until Saturday morning if you can to make moves, because I think Ronaldo's not going to change in his price as per the information that I have until the next game week. So I think you just wait until deadline. Make sure you have as much news as possible before making moves, because you're selling a Bruno Fernandes here. Bruno Fernandes himself is a great captaincy option for game week 4. So just wait till you have as much news as possible.
At least till the Friday press conferences, if not till Saturday morning, at least for the Friday press conferences, let's see if we get any sort of hints. If Solskjaer says he needs fitness, etc., etc. I don't think he's going to give anything away, but it's definitely worth waiting.
I think he's going to give something away. I think this is too much of an occasion for Manchester United. They've been milking it on social media as well. I mean, the press conference that happened before game week 3, where Ole was asked about Ronaldo rumors, and Ronaldo wasn't through. It was that morning where the pendulum shifted from City to United. Ole doesn't have a poker face. He was smirking away. He confident, and the moment I saw that press conference, I knew that Ronaldo's coming to United. So I think Ole's gonna give us a hint. That's my bet.
Cool. Anything else to add now in this section? The premiums Ronaldo. Should we move on to the wildcard picks?
No, yeah, I do.
Are we going to discuss Greenwood as well in this section, or are we going to leave it for later?
I mean, should we do it in the wildcard section? Yeah, let's do in the wildcard mid section.
But I do have a couple of questions in terms of meta strategy when it comes to big hitters. Are you making sure there is a certain way in which you're going to play the season, or it's too early to decide anything in terms of what big hitters you're going to move around with? I think that's something that Wildcard is assessing. Bakar said that at the moment it looks like one big striker and one big midfielder is the ideal structure. I'm in agreement with that. Definitely. I think it gives the most flexibility. I wouldn't go for 3 because I still believe that value is offered when captaincy comes into play for these premium players. Are you on the same page, Zoph?
I think so, because I don't think Ronaldo is going to be fixture proof. I don't think he has been over the last few years. So I think you have to, and I think he's probably going to still keep ticking along. He's still probably going to be getting your 5, 6, 8. But if you're the big hitter, you want your 13s, 17s, and that potential is fixture. I don't think there's any player who's completely fixture proof. Probably Salah to a certain extent, because Liverpool, they're in fact more attacking in the big games. The big game suits them.
My guess is Lukaku will be fixture proof because Chelsea are a good team. My assumption again, and I don't think it's a Ronaldo thing. I think Ronaldo at Manchester City would be more fixture proof than Ronaldo at Manchester United, because City are a team that are further in development and progression, and they've been the best team in the league in the past 7-8 years. So I think it depends on the team more than the player.
Correct. But the positive you have is over here, Solskjaer is going to flog him. In City, he would have definitely been rotated a lot more.
Correct.
For sure.
Correct. Now we can move on. Yeah.
Cool. So, wildcard.
Just before we move on, just throwing in a little bit of a stat. In that game where Southampton played Newcastle, Southampton had 65% possession, 22 attempts on goal, 3.54 xG. Just wanted to throw it in there.
And while we're at this, that 3.4x for 54xg is the second highest recorded by any team this season.
The Genepo chance, oh my God, Livramento crossed.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that alone must have accounted for like 0.7 xg.
yeah, that and the penalty, right? That will account
Right.
for high XG. All right, we are going to move on to the wildcard discussion now. And at the moment, as things stand, I understand that neither of the three of us are wildcarding. So I'll come to you, Bakar, first. Why aren't you wildcarding?
I'm not wildcarding because at the moment I don't see too many differences. My own team between my own team and the post wildcard team. I simply think that wildcard is team dependent. I have seen a few people doing it. And I mean I'm in agreement with some of the teams that I see because they were sort of basically wrecked by quite a few injuries and red cards to James, or in those kind of situations I agree with it, where you basically don't have a playable defender or basically have to take a -8 to accommodate Ronaldo or someone. So I
Why
think it
aren't
is
you
team dependent,
wildcarding, though,
but
Bakar?
for me personally, I am not wildcarding because my team is not too far off from what I would consider to be the ideal wildcard team. I simply think that there will be better times this season for me to maximize the gain I make between a pre-wildcard team and a post-wildcard team, and I don't think that time is right now. There will come to what the best times for that are. Those two times are, in my opinion, for the first wildcard game, week 7, when we have a fixture swing for Chelsea, and basically United's fixtures are turning pretty bad at that time. So that seems like a good time to get rid of Greenwood, Ronaldo, Shaw, and jump on the likes of James, Rudiger, Lukaku. And similarly, Leeds have a very good fixture swing as well. So you could possibly triple up on Leeds as well. The other opportunity I see is in game week 14, where you see possibly the best run possible you can even script as a Manchester United fan. And that is the time from game week 14 to I think somewhere between game week 24, 25, when United have a really strong run of fixtures and Chelsea's fixtures drop off. So I have penciled in these two times for wildcard. Personally, with my own team, my bench is not strong enough for me at the moment, which is why I think I will probably wildcard in game week 7. But if I can somehow sustain getting away with it, then I think game week 14 might be the time to go with.
All right. I just want to bring in a couple of meta points when it comes to the discussion in terms of why we're not wildcarding. And I think it's important for somebody who's not pulled the trigger as yet and is still on the edge in terms of what to do, because I think there's some Son news that emerged as well where he might be a doubt. And this might push some people over the edge in terms of wildcarding. Now, in my opinion, I think if your team is not ideal right now, I think it's okay to compromise some points for a lot more information given the current state of play. If your team is far away from where you want to be, fine, go ahead and wildcard, and I'm not against it if your team is far away and if you're sure of the picks. At the moment, having assessed the landscape in the first three game weeks, I'm just not sure who the good picks are. I'm not sure how the season is going to be playing out. The second wildcard that we're going to be using is going to be a long time away from game week 4 if you're wildcarding right now. And so a couple of points. Everybody has 4 players at least from United and Pool combined who are going to be starting in the next 3 or 4 game weeks for everybody. That's 40% of your team that's sorted. I don't know I admit that Wolves have looked great in the first 3 game weeks, but can I confidently pinpoint and say who the right Wolves FPL assets are? No, I can't say that confidently at the moment. Can I confidently say outside of Lukaku who the right Chelsea assets are? No. In fact, I think Reece James is the best defensive asset in Chelsea at the moment, and he's not going to play in game week 4. I don't know who the right game week 4.5 million defenders are. I just don't think there's enough information. And talking a little meta, presuming that we want to shift the big hitters around because of the number of big hitters in play this season, it's very important that the core of the team that you build around your big hitters, your glue guys, your 6.5 million assets, your 6 million assets, even the cheap enabling striker debate when it comes to Armstrong versus Pookie versus Dennis. I don't know the correct answer. I don't know the correct answer when it comes to who the right goalkeeper is at the moment. It's a lot of speculation. I'm not confident about those picks, about the structure of the team around those big hitters at the moment. And let's say it is a season where we're required to shift those big hitters. I think you will be in a little bit of a crux. And I see a lot of teams very focused on the short term when they're building their team on the wild card. So I would urge them to think a little long term. And if you're right on the edge, and if it's a difference between taking one more -4 versus pulling the wildcard button, and you're not sitting comfortably sitting on a -8, I think the compromise of a few points at the moment is worth the information that you're going to get in the next few weeks. So that's where
I completely agree. I completely agree. Brunel, I'd like to be a bit more specific. So you asked me about the reason why I'm not wildcarding. So um, I made an ideal wildcard team, which I thought would be the best one to go with, and I'd like other managers who are considering wildcarding to take this, to sort of do this practice as well, because it really helped me in my decision making as a FPL manager. So when I looked at my original team and compared it with my post wildcard team, there were differences. For example, Greenwood versus Traore or Sar, Shaw versus someone like a Semedo, Sanchez versus someone like Melier or Raya, or even Sa. Up front, there was a difference between Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez, or between Greenwood, who's in my existing team. I can't confidently say that the guys I'm buying will outscore the players I'm selling. I can't confidently say that, which is why I don't think it makes sense to pull the trigger when there's so much uncertainty at the moment. You're absolutely right. We need more data to make those well-informed decisions.
Yep.
Correct.
That's where. Anything to add, Zoph?
I think just you guys have covered most of it. Just one thing to say, a wildcard is as much about the players you sell as the players you buy. The players I want to sell now will be very different to the players I want to sell in Game Week 8. I don't want to sell my United core of Sean Greenwood now. I don't want to sell Antonio Benrahma now. So this makes a big difference, right? The same core of the team, I'd want to change it a few weeks later, not now. But apart from it, you guys have covered all the reasons pretty well.
All right, but let's not be too harsh to the
But it's
people
very
who
team
are
dependent, right?
active
Exactly. There is an opportunity there
Yeah.
also to get ahead of the curve.
Yep,
Anyone who
yep.
has wildcarded, I can see there's definitely a reason to. And if you're in a good position, it's not that you should only wildcard when you're in a position of weakness. You can wildcard from a position of strength as well.
Correct. I agree. And that's why we're here to help everybody who's wildcard, because I think it's just a good time to have that discussion where what we're going to be doing is, if we were on wildcard, we'll just have a discussion around what picks we would have around each position. So we'll start with the keepers first. And Zoph, I think you want to do a little bit of a fixture run before.
Let's just do the fixture run because we can talk about over here. This is now we're looking at the short term for the next 5 weeks. Wolves are all the way on top. Arsenal are second. So that's the thing now with both these teams who are on top, they've yet to gain a point this season.
Correct.
So
And it's not even that. I mean, you can comfortably say that Wolves are a good team. I think we are going to be seeing a different Wolves team, but how are they going to be playing against the next two defenses who are going to be maybe sitting a fair bit compared to them having to counter in the previous games? Does it mean that Traore gets as much space as he did to run against the opposition, or is he going to struggle and hit a shot that's going to get blocked against a defense that sits deep? That is something we're not aware of at the moment. But so I mean, the point of going through the fixtures here is that we are looking at two sets of fixture tickers, and this is a short-term fixture ticker where we're looking at the next 5 game weeks. This you should not be using for your defensive picks. You should be using this only and only for your attacking picks, and it should be balanced between short-term and long-term picks. So yeah, Wolves, Arsenal players are in consideration. Leeds United players are in consideration because after the Liverpool fixture, Leeds go on a great run of fixtures. Liverpool players are obviously in consideration. There might be a Jota-sized opportunity based on how long Firmino might be out at the moment. West Ham still have great fixtures. Everton have great fixtures. TCL is in a bunch of wildcard drafts at the moment. I think all three of us are looking at him as a transfer in as well at the moment. So these are the teams that have good fixtures in the short term. United have good fixtures as well. Newcastle at home, West Ham away, Aston Villa at home. After that, they have Everton at home, Leicester away. After that, they play the top teams. Now, can we move into the long-term fixture ticker?
Right.
Now, this is something you should be looking at for at least 50% of your team, in my opinion, and at least 90% of your defense, because the players you want to pick in your defense, you don't want to be spending your transfers there. So Arsenal, Wolves, Chelsea, I mean, I would definitely throw in a Chelsea defender on a wildcard team at the moment. I would consider throwing in a Man City
I would get
defender
in
as well.
James and bench him. And we'll get to that section when we talk about defenders, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Long term, Leeds United have great fixtures. Watford have really good fixtures. I know you're big on Sar at the moment, Zoph. So Everton have great long term fixtures as well. Man United, not so much. Bottom of the fixture ticker. As we see, game week 9, 10, and 11, they play Liverpool, Spurs away, and Man City at home. So that's when there's a sharp curve in United's fixtures as well. So just wanted to get those fixtures out before we move into the players that we like in each position. So let's start with the keepers. Bakar, what keepers would you look at if you were on wildcard at the moment?
So for me, looking when I look at the fixtures, I don't when I look at the keepers, I don't really look at the fixtures because you're likely to be basically leaving them in for a large part of the season, right? So the fixtures will even themselves out. So for me, it's about getting the best keepers. Um, it's actually, the goalkeeper slot is actually one of the toughest to get right in this stage of the season because I don't simply think we have enough information, like we've said before. If I had to pick or rank my top three, I think Melier would be my number one, simply because of the saves we make and because of what we have available in terms of his past history last season. Whenever Leeds keep a clean sheet, he's likely to get a big chunk of the bonus, which is why I think he's worth the zero 0.5 premium over the other keepers. Um, I think the second best keeper is still likely to be Sanchez, given the fact how solid Brighton are. I know their upcoming fixtures aren't that great, but still, I mean, I firmly believe that those are kind of the fixtures where he's likely to haul in because, I mean, even against the top teams, I sort of fancy Brighton to limit them to respectable scores and limit them to possibly even nil-nils. That's the kind of team they are. And the third keeper I think I like is actually Sa for 5 million, simply because Wolves have looked really good, and in fact, despite their tough opening fixtures, they faced Leicester, Man United, Spurs in the first three. They're still ranked third best in terms of XG conceded from open play, only after Chelsea and Man City, which just tells you how good they've been defensively. And this is why I think Sa could be a good set and forget option as well. Wolves seem like the kind of team which can shut most sides out at the moment.
Yeah, just on that Sa point, and I think what you take into consideration also is at what price is a defender available in the same team, and that's something that would maybe put me off Sa at the moment because Sa is a 5 million defender. You have a Martial at what 4.5 million at the moment. You have a Semedo who's got legit attacking threat at 4.9 million as well. So would that influence your thinking?
But to play devil's advocate, I mean, as Martial has a history of injuries, right? Which is not something I'd want to go towards while wild carding, right? Cody would possibly be a better shout, in my opinion. He's 4.5 as well. But then again, I mean, I like my defenders to have a bit of threat. I guess you can't go wrong with 4.5 million, but personally, I don't like the idea of investing in a defender with no sort of attacking threat at
Zoph,
all.
what keepers do you
So,
like?
so I personally still can't bring myself to invest 5 million on a keeper. I just can't do it. So what I look from a keeper is I want a team that concedes a lot of shots, but not a lot of big chances. And I know it's been a very limited sample size, but from what I can seen so far, I think Brentford fit that bill. Now you see the table over here in terms of open play goal attempts conceded so far. I think Brentford are ranked 11th. But they've conceded only two big chances. You see all the other teams above them, they're much more proficient names. You see the likes of Man United, you see the likes of Chelsea, even Liverpool and Wolves. They've conceded more big chances than Brentford have. So Raya is making saves. He's good for bonus. So I think it's if I was going for 4.5 keeper, definitely Rhea.
And
Zoph, what are your thoughts on Backman? Because this is another thing I've noticed with Watford, that they're exactly the kind of team which don't. I know he hasn't done well in the first three fixtures, but we have to look at the underlyings. And when we look at the underlyings, Backman has conceded a lot of low quality shots, particularly when you look at that game against Spurs. I think Spurs had like 6 or 7 shots on target, and the significant majority of them had a very low XG.
the
And now
combined
that is
XG of
another
all
thing.
those 7 shots was 0.5. Combined XG of 7 shots against Spurs.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
So Watford are that kind of team which can shut most teams out as well. And I know you're high on Sar, but personally for me, if I was picking one from Watford, it would be Backman, because they're a defense first team. They prioritize defense, and now they have Sirielta back as well, and I think that's gonna play a part as well.
Right. Did
I
you
saw
see
the
the
whole.
stats? Go ahead.
I saw the whole Watford Spurs game because I had Kane captain. So what I think makes a huge difference in that team is the midfield that they have right now. They have Sissoko in midfield, who's a Premier League pro, has been for a while. I think he's a good midfielder. And that guy Kushka, I think he's a monster of a player. I think that's just a solid base as a team. If I was spending 4.5, I'd go either Bachmann or Sanchez. I still think I'd be risk averse and go Sanchez as my keeper, just because I'd be more reliant on clean sheets. But I just want to throw in a couple of other names. A certain manager whose policy is defense first has a great run of fixtures game week 5 onwards, has a keeper costing 5.2 million, and that's Jordan Pickford. Just while we are talking about Bachman as well, this is a great stat that Tom Freeman posted on the FFS Scout website, where 54.05% of the shots that Pickford has faced have come from outside his area. That's the best rate of any goalkeeper so far. So, do you trust in a Benitez team and spend 5.0 million on a Pickford? I think it's an interesting shout. I just want to give options and reasoning to our listeners at the moment. And the only other keeper that would interest me, I would never spend 5.5 million on a keeper. But if you can, I think Lloris at 5.5 million is a great shot, because something that I know that Spurs defensive numbers haven't been great so far. I think what their their delta for XG minus is very, very high, and that's because Lloris is a world-class keeper. He's great. I've seen them concede. They're playing sort of like Burnley, where Nuno knows how to organize a defense. There's a lot of blocks that Sanchez and Dyer are making, and there's a lot of good saves that Lloris is making. He's on he's the top scoring goalkeeper so far. So I think he's an interesting shout, because Spurs have a decent run of fixtures as well. But if I was to rank the keepers, I'd put in Sanchez and Bachmann as 1, 2, and I'd throw in a punt on Pickford at number 3.
Interesting. For me, it would be two of the cheap guys, either Rhea or Bachmann. I think it's a bit of a coin toss. Short term, probably. I think Bachmann, because I think let's just have a quick look at the fixtures again. And I think fixtures do matter to a certain extent, even though, like Bakar said, you're probably holding the keeper till game week 38, etc. But the short-term fixtures are much better for Watford than they are for Brentford, because Brentford have a nasty run after Brighton is Wolves, Liverpool, West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester. Ultimately, you want something.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Sanchez now.
Thing is, Sanchez, you're looking at like 6s or 2s. That's the problem, right? Ultimately, it's not someone you have to running to go sell, but ultimately you want somebody who has a potential for the 9, 10, 11 right now at this stage. And you don't want, if you concede, like we saw the concede against Everton, you got 2 points, 1 point, right? No, I think he made 3 saves, so 2 points after that.
Two. Yeah, 2 points. 2 points.
So probably for that reason.
And that data is not based on the first 3 game weeks. That's a continuation of the data since Sanchez came into play last season as well. So it's a pretty big data set that we have as well there.
Correct. So I think let's move on to the defenders.
Sure.
Cool. I'll just read out
Trent
some stats.
locked in?
Yeah, I think Trent's pretty locked in. Do you want to go without Trent? I don't think you should go without Trent, even on Wildcard. If you're going to look at selling Trent to accommodate 3 big hitters, don't do it. Trent is a big hitter by himself just because he costs 7.5. Don't be fooled by that price tag. I think Trent is a great option. James also at 1.23. Keep in mind that he didn't start the first game. He got suspended to the third half, a half of the Liverpool game, but he's still up there in terms of expected goal involvement. And I think you had mentioned this in one of the previous spots. Lukaku's heading ability is really big for James. in terms of finishing off his crosses. So I think he's really good value. Cancelo probably gets some more game time this season with the issues regarding Mendy. Good numbers. Now, Saiss is an interesting one. Do you guys think he keeps his spot long term in the Wolves team? I don't think so.
So Wolves is a conundrum in my head because this was something that Walsh pointed out on the pod and on the FML FPL pod, and it was a great shout because what happened was Wolves, when they were training for preseason, the first few games, the formation that they were playing was 4-2-4, not three at the back, and they shifted that formation right at the end of preseason because I think Lars realized that the first three games are against tough opposition. There is a slight chance he could revert to four at the back and have a change in shape uh, because they could play a two. Because what they're also noticing is, yeah, they've had a lot of chances, but they've not put any of those goals inside the net. And Podence is fit. He came on in the 70th minute against United as well, which is why there are sort of uh, doubts about Trinkao's minutes as well. Because if that Podence threat wasn't there, I think Trincao is my favorite midfielder above Traore in that Wolves team. So yeah, when it comes to size, who plays if at all Wolves revert to a two? I'm not sure.
I think Bolly is probably the best centre back. I think Bolly has to be. The thing is, Cody was a Nuno's favorite. I'm not necessarily sure this manager holds him as high regard as Nuno did, right? So you don't really know with Cody.
And also the Wolves fans, I was monitoring the Wolves forums closely before the preseason, before the season started, and the new centre back Mosquera is also very, very highly rated. So again, not enough information. I wouldn't go with any centre backs because I just don't know.
Right. Bakar, anything to add in defenders? Who would be your top three picks? Let's leave Trent out. Let's say top three
Let's
picks for defenders otherwise.
yeah, let's leave Trent out and let's do the conversation price wise. So if you're having one position in that 5.56 million price packet, in addition to Trent, who do you go with? Bakar, I'll come to you first.
I think it would be between Shaw and Rudiger. I think I'd probably still go with Shaw, given how we've seen him in terms of creativity, and I do think that United will keep a few clean sheets in the next three fixtures as well.
Zoph?
My second pick would be Rudiger in this price bracket. I really like the idea of going with Rudiger on a wild card because that sort of gives you the flexibility to start with a double up in defense by game week 7, and that puts you ahead of the curve.
For me, I think I would go with James over Rudiger. The upside is extremely, extremely high with Reece James this season, and I think he's going to get a lot more game time, especially since we didn't sign Kunde from Sevilla. So you have less competition. There's just Hudson-Odoi, I think, who's really going to play that role much. And I wouldn't really look at Shaw necessarily now because I don't like the fixtures after the next 3 game weeks in terms of defensive returns. Sure, if you have him, you stick with him, but I don't know. Wildcard, he looks a bit of short term to me.
Okay, so
No city
firstly on
defenders for
James,
either of y'all?
City, I don't think the short-term fixtures are tough again, right? Because you have Leicester, Southampton, and then you have what, Chelsea, Liverpool.
Zoff, only team outside of Chelsea you can clean in against anybody.
I know, but then who are you getting? You're getting Diaz for 6, right? Ultimately,
Yeah.
at
So
6 you
Reece
can
is a
get like
better
a
pick.
Chilwell. You can get like a Chilwell or something else instead. That's why.
Chilwell is 5.7 now. I'm just
yeah,
waiting
more
for
on
a game week
James
7.
Zoff. My point of the suggestion of starting with Rudiger was to. I know that James is a far better pick than him. My point of starting with Rudiger is that you get James in 7 after the fixtures against Spurs and City, and after he served his suspension.
I guess, yeah,
That's the point of starting with him.
because
Yeah,
you want to avoid this
I don't
fixture.
really like the idea of getting him on wildcard, leaving him on the bench for this favorable fixture, and then having him. Okay, Chelsea can probably clean against Spurs, but then he has City in 6, so I probably not go towards James right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Pranil?
if I was looking at this position, I'd been Shaw, because McTominay, I don't know how fit he is at the moment, and as long as Fred is playing as DM, I don't have any faith in our defense. And yeah, I do think that United will keep a lot more clean sheets, about 4 or 5 more than last season because of the addition of Varane. I thought he was great in that game against Wolves, and I do think that Shaw will clock a few more assists, maybe 3 or 4 more assists because of the addition of Ronaldo in attack. That said,
Okay.
I prefer Reece James. I would do what Zoff mentioned. I'd get James on my wildcard because I would not want to spend uh,
transfer and
transfers
defense.
on my defense, and I mean, you play a Livramento against West Ham, take that sort of chance, find a 4.3 million, 4.4 million defender, somebody like White, play him against Norwich, and figure out a rotation. But I'd throw Reece in because I'm sure he's the right pick. What the problem with the Rudiger assumption in my head, Bakar, for wildcarders is, let's say they're going in with Rudiger and Lukaku on wildcard. In the next 3 game weeks, we find out that Kai or Mason Mount are much better picks than a Rudiger is in that Chelsea team. Then it requires a lot of changes in that team setup. I'm just not sure about that pick as much as I am.
Okay. So the counter to this is that I personally think that Rudiger at 5.5 is likely to be exceptional value, and at that price range where Mason Mount and Kai are, I think there are a lot of other options to be had as well. While for defense, I simply think that Chelsea is the standout defense to take advantage of. The other thing that Zoph, I wanted to speak about with Zoph. Zoph mentioned that United's fixtures after the next three are tricky. I thought it would be worth mentioning that last season, 50%, in fact, not almost, exactly 50%, 6 of 12 of United's clean sheets actually came against the top six. United are that sort of team which keep clean sheets against the harder teams.
Because no fans, buddy. They can't set up in a negative way at Old Trafford with fans there.
No, but that's a good point.
I
can
understand
see
what this is the point you're making, but ultimately it's going to be different with fans back in stadiums.
This is it. This exact logic is the logic of keeping Trent as well. That Trent, regardless of his fixtures, has the creativity to haul in any of the fixtures, and has basically he's a long-term pick, right? I think the same logic applies to Shaw as well. I don't see much of a difference between the two of them. In fact, when you compare their numbers in the calendar year, they're neck to neck for chances created. There's not much of a difference. And it's not as if Liverpool have a very good defense either. I mean, Liverpool's defensive numbers have actually plummeted when you compare them to the yesteryears as well. So Liverpool's defense is almost as good as United's these days.
No, but you don't even need to look at Trent as a defender. Trent's created 15 chances. That's more than any player in any position. He's basically a midfielder. But just the fixtures I'm reading out for you, United, after game week 6, it's Everton, Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs, Man City. So are you really saying Shaw is fixture proof during that run?
I mean, I trust him till the Spurs game. I think he's good, but the Liverpool and City game, yes, that is a problem, and that could be a time when alternatives may be needed. But
That's
I mean, you
something.
plan the wild card in such a way. When you plan, when you're making the wild card, you plan it.
And then defense on the
No,
wild card.
that's no. What I'm saying is that you sort of plan the wild card in such a way that you can afford to bench Shaw for the Liverpool or City game and get a decent alternative.
No,
I mean,
I benched Shaw once last season. That was away to City. He got 13 points. So you don't bench premium defenders irrespective of any opposition. You just said that they can keep a clean sheet in the big games. Now you're saying you can bench Shaw in the big games.
I did, but Liverpool and City are. I mean, they're a level above, right? When it comes to attacking threat. I'm okay playing him against Spurs or Everton or Leicester for that matter. But Liverpool and City are a cut above.
I think we'll agree to disagree on this point because they kept a clean sheet against City last season as well. So let's just go back. I think defenders, let's talk about the budget defenders. I think this is more of a consideration, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, budget defenders, and I'm going to price it at 5.0 and under when we're looking at this bracket. And I just want to mention that this is also one of the reasons why I'm wary of Rudiger Bakar is if Christensen is playing the next 3 games, I want in at 5 million into the Chelsea defense.
Exactly.
I don't know how Thiago Silva is going to set up. I mean, how Tuchel is going to rotate Thiago and Christensen. But I was happy to see that when Chelsea did go down to 10 men, he played Thiago and Christensen next to each other. That is something which was positive to me for potential Christensen owners. Zoph, you're the Chelsea fan.
So the thing is, right, whenever you double into a defense, my formula is you get one guy upside and you get one guy who's a steady Eddie. Like last year, we went for a Cancelo Diaz. You have Diaz, who's a secure starter with low upside, and you get the one guy who might be rotated but is capable of the big haul. So if you have to go for that combination, is obviously, I think this season is Christensen plus one of James Chilwell, which is why I'm not so keen on that Rudiger option.
But Zoph, what's your read of Christensen? Do wildcarders go for him right now?
I think
is he nailed?
I think that if you go for him, you need someone stronger because I'm seeing a lot of squads with Livramento and Williams. I think that's his name. So you need a stronger sub than that. Because with Christensen, you need at least like a 4.5 decent guy who can sub on if you want. Because he's going to play the majority of games. And the best part about that position is Tuchel doesn't sub on or sub off players at the center back. He does that with the wing backs. He does that with the attackers. So if the guy is not starting, you're most likely going to have your sub come on. So I think Christensen has improved a lot. He's come on leaps and bounds. He's under Tuchel. He's very comfortable in that role. Thiago
New
Silva,
contract as well, right?
new contract. So I think Christensen is a great pick, but you need to have a better sub than I think than Livramento or Williams if you're going for Christensen.
All right, I'll talk about my favorite picks in this price bracket, and this is assuming that you go Reece James. I wouldn't get in Christensen. I would wait until game week 7 because after the Aston Villa game, there are two relatively tough fixtures for Chelsea anyway. So I wouldn't want to double up on that defense immediately. I'd wait for more information. But two other picks that I like in the price bracket, I would look at a Semedo because I think there isn't a threat from Hoover, and he's been a lot of the play in that Wolves team is coming in on that right hand side, and the fixtures are great from 4 to 14. So even if they don't do well for the next two fixtures, you're at least comforted by them having a great run until game week 14. So you're not going to touch that position for a while unless he loses his spot. If he loses his spot, bad luck. And two other names that I like in the budget bracket, I think Ben White is a really good pick at 4.4 million now. I think that price is great at the moment, and I don't think you pay attention to what happened with Arsenal in the first 3 game weeks. Partey is fit, White is fit, and Gabriel is fit, and I think that changes the nature of that team. The fixtures are great in the midterm as well. So if I'm spending 4.4 to 4.6 in that price bracket, I'd either go for White or I'd go for Eric Dyer. And I'd go for Eric Dyer because I have faith in the manager that is Nuno in terms of how to set up a team defensively, how to organize a team. And I think Dyer is more nailed compared to Sanchez. We mentioned this reason on the pod earlier as well, because Sanchez is more similar in style to Romero. They had one game in that Conference League as well where Romero and Dyer were partnered together as well. So that was a slight indication in terms of what the potential future partnership would be. So my top 3 picks, 5 million and under: Semedo, White, and Eric Dyer.
Apart from the obvious Livramento and Williams and all that stuff. Correct.
Livramento is the best enabler. I think all 3 of us agree on that.
Correct. Bakar, your budget guys, sub 5.
Semedo, number 1. I just mentioned how good Wolves' stats are, and he's playing really advanced up the field on the right wing. He's almost on par with Trincao when it comes to the average position map. So he's one who really stands out in that 5 million sub bracket. My second pick in that bracket would, I guess, probably be Cody, and the third one would be Ben White. I think Ben White could serve a purpose till the end of the season. Actually, he's likely to be good value. I think Arsenal will improve. Their fixtures are really good as well for the next 14 to 15 game weeks.
Right. I agree with the picks you guys said. I think to actually move on to the mids.
Sure. Zoph, why don't you kick us off with the mids? Premium?
Salah is going nowhere.
I'm in agreement. Bakar?
Absolutely.
All right, then let's talk about the mid-price mids then. So top 3 picks in that mid-price bracket.
See, it's going to sound funny that I'm going to name 3 guys, but I would never buy all 3 of them at the same time. We would probably buy 1, maybe 2. So it would be
I know the name 3 guys.
Greenwood, Torres, and Shota, obviously. So I've seen lots of teams that have all 3 of them, and that would be very scary. I think I would rather use a wildcard to get those guys out of my team down the line 3-4 weeks. Then, because eventually you're going to need to, because with Torres you have, and we'll talk a bit more about Torres because he's likely going to be my Bruno replacement, and I'm not too confident about him. I want to talk to you. So let's do it right now. What do you guys think of Torres? Let's just have a look at the fixtures again for Manchester City.
I have a couple of stats for Torres which are quite interesting.
Go ahead.
So Foden is a good example. This is again something that Freeman wrote. Foden is a good example of what we might expect from Torres in FPL. Last season, he started 17 games and made 11 sub appearances. Despite a cluster of one pointers off the bench, he averaged 4.8 points per match. This was higher than Rafinha and Mason Mount. So basically at 7 million, somebody like a Torres is worth it. I think if you're going in on Torres, you buy him before the next two fixtures because Leicester and Southampton are the juicy fixtures.
Other money fixtures.
Keeping in mind the threat that there might be because Champions League and Carabao Cup is starting and there could be, but there's no free lunch, right? I mean, if you're getting a Manchester City striker as a 7 million midfielder, there is going to be a certain amount of risk associated with it. You take the gamble, but you be wary and you ride out the ones. But I'd be more willing to take the gamble than not. And just a second stat that I have, City have more goals than any other side bar West Ham at the moment, but none of them mids or forwards feature in the top 14 players for attempts in the opposition area. But the sustained quality of chances falling to City means that Torres is the second highest midfielder for non-penalty XG so far. So you're getting a sustained quality of chances when it comes to Torres. So I think there's enough upside. I think he's going to be fine for a while. I'm putting myself not sitting on the fence here. I think it's worth a go.
Right. And I love the segment that Shearer did.
But if you're
about
going
him.
for him, you don't wait. You go for him.
You have to go for him now.
Yeah,
It's the next two fixtures.
The runs
like
that
you
he
said.
made.
The runs that he made, analyze them.
And don't read that Leicester fixture as a red fixture at the moment. I think that Leicester fixture is a good fixture because they still don't have their first choice defenders. Soansu was terrible in the previous game, and Amati is Amati. So I don't think Leicester have been good defensively. So if you're going for a Torres, go now.
Yes, exactly. The numbers defensively in all three games have been poor. Actually, they're in the bottom five for XG conceded from open play in the past three games. Actually, I think City will do well in that fixture. Personally, this is an issue I'm facing as well. Looking for a Bruno replacement, particularly now that we have news that De Bruyne and Foden are likely to be back. That's making things a bit more difficult. De Bruyne played false nine in 9 league games last season. Foden played there thrice. There's Sterling and Mahrez who are also waiting in the wings. So you get the sort of feeling that Torres might be one poor game away from getting dropped. But I agree. I mean, he could represent value at that price despite those bench appearances. But this is something you will have to accept. With Champions League becoming a thing again, Carabao coming into play, Torres will get rotated. I don't think he's going to play every game. What makes me wary about him, though, is the fact that Spain have already played twice and he started both games, and now they're playing again tomorrow. And there's a chance that he might start all 3 Spain games. And if he does so, then I think he becomes a serious risk for
Leicester.
For the coming games, right? He could either get benched in Leicester or against Leipzig. Who he gets benched against is open to debate, and honestly, that's a secret only Pep knows the answer to. But honestly, in my opinion, given from what I see, what I read, from what I hear, when you look at Pep, I was reading his quotes after the Norwich game as well, after the Arsenal game as well. He was clearly in awe of Torres, and he did say that he makes movements towards the goals, and with our lack of goals in recent times, he is someone we need because he makes those movements there. So these are the kind of quotes which make me feel as if he's first choice. I firmly believe he is first choice. Whether or not he starts the next game, I'm not too sure about. But at the moment, he is my front runner to replace Bruno, simply because of the fact that, yes, a Man City midfielder potentially starting out of position up front for just the 7 million is the kind of punt you take more often than not. I mean, I was in a similar situation last season with Jota as well, and I remember I got him in and he did reasonably well for me. So let's see. I'm not 100% on my decision. I mean, Adama's the other guy I'm considering, but Torres is tempting me for
Let's
sure.
talk about Adama, Gray, and Sar. I think these are a lot
Wait,
of
wait, wait.
players. Go ahead.
Before we move on to, I think we need to close the Torres Jota Greenwood argument rather, not even agreement. When it comes to Jota, I think we still have to wait until Friday for Klopp's presser before making a call on Jota, because we don't know. I mean, there are conflicting reports coming out in terms of Firmino news and how long he's going to be out for. So we'll probably get news by Friday. If he's out for the next 3 or 4, no doubt in my head you go for Jota, because Jota matches Salah and sometimes outperforms Salah when they're playing together. So you go for Jota. He becomes the default number one pick if Firmino is out for 3 to 4 games, but you wait for news until Friday. Out of these three players, how many would you go for on a wild card? And if so, how do you rank them?
Jota news, I guess it depends on if Firmino is out for, let's say, the next 3 to 4 weeks, and I think Jota goes right on top in terms of
Yep.
these three guys. I think as it stands, probably assuming that Firmino misses only one game, I would say it would be Greenwood, Torres, Jota in that order for me. Bakar?
Yeah.
I think I'd go Torres. If Firmino's out for 3 weeks, I'd go Torres, Jota. I'd go Jota, Torres, Greenwood in that
If
order.
Firmino's out just for a week, Bakar?
Then I won't consider Jota as an option because he's.
And
I
you
mean,
prefer Greenwood
he's not
or
first.
Torres? You prefer
I prefer,
Torres?
yes, in case he's
First
out
Torres.
for just the week. Yeah, I prefer Torres over Greenwood, and then Jota in case Firmino's out just for a week.
I agree. The only reason I'd go Torres over Greenwood is because at the moment I think it's conflicting and it's close and it's nowhere proper opinion. But I think Torres seems like the more longer term pick at the moment. That said, Greenwood's performances have been great, so it's just a tough call. But I would slightly prefer Torres because I'd
I
want
do
to
think
get
I
out
do
of.
think I do think
Yeah.
Greenwood will keep his spot for the next 2 or 3 games though, just because of
Yeah,
how well he's done.
it's just depending on how much you're committed to United in your team, because you'll want to get out of them on your wildcard around the game week 7-8 mark. So that's the thing that's playing in my head. How many eggs and how many
I
baskets?
agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Should we talk about the budget, guys?
yeah. Let's talk about 6.5 million and below. I would no doubt have Rafinha in my team. I think Leeds United have a great run of fixtures after the Liverpool game, and we don't have news in terms of Brazil, the Brazilian national team enforcing a ban on these players. By the way, that was incredible what happened the other day.
Right.
I don't think. I mean, the
Arsenal.
hypocrisy of that entire situation. Let's not comment on it. It's a political situation at the moment, but there could be still news that Brazil is enforcing bans on their players for the next 5 days, so they might have to miss the game week for fixture. We will have this news around Friday, Saturday. I don't think it's going to happen now. I think it's too late personally, but I definitely have Rafinha on my wildcard irrespective. I think he's ignored as a pick, and the long run of fixtures are great. So Rafinha would be number one in my team as a pick. And but let's say if I have to pick between Adama and Trincao, at the moment I'd go Trincao. The reason being, Adama's stats are fabulous. It's great, but I don't think you can coach finishing. He's not been a good finisher for a really good time, long time. And what I also think is Adama running around, beating defenders, etc. Defenses are going to sit. I think that's going to open up space for Jim and Trincao. And I think what I said at the top of the pod applies here. This is a narrative. This is a story that I'm saying. I'm not at all confident, but this is our job as FPL managers, is to speculate, to assume what might happen in the future. And I think this is what's going to happen, where I think the more space is going to open up for a Trincao. When it comes to shots in the box, Adama has 7 versus Trincao having 6. But Adama has 7 block shots. And I think the teams that he's going to be playing in the future, they're going to be sitting deep. And there's just going to be a lot more block shots from Adama. And the only big advantage that Adama has over a Trincao is I think he's way more nailed than Trincao is, if the Podence strength is there.
Yep. I would still buy Sar over any of the other budget mids. I think Sar's potential over the next few weeks is huge. And I'll talk about his numbers over here, some of them now. You see, shots in the box, he's had 6. He's had 8 chances created. But what's slightly worrying here is 0 big chances over the first 3 matches.
Yes.
Now, what comes into play a little bit, you could possibly say, is the opposition they've played. They've had Spurs and they've had Brighton, 2 decent defenses in game week 2 and 3, and they are a bit negative when they set up away, which is also a little bit off-putting. But the fixtures I think are really good over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And I think he's possibly on penalties as well with Deeney gone.
Yeah, I think also that's a good strategy for people on Wildcard, because us not having information about which Wolves asset is the right FPL pick, you wait and watch, and then as soon as you're sure, you jump, you make that shift. I think
Because
that's a valid
Sar
strategy.
is a talisman. If Watford are going to score, it's very likely Sar is going to be involved. We don't need any more data for that. We knew that already game week 1. So
Yeah.
I think I'm very hot on Sar.
I think
I
Bakar is big
disagree with
on
you.
Traore. So yeah, make the case,
Yeah,
Bakar.
I disagree with you here on SAR personally. It's because of the fact that Watford in general have been a negative side. Even when you look at their numbers this year, they're in the bottom 5 for XG from open play. Yes, Sar is the main man. He is likely to create chances, get the significant majority of their shots inside the box. But I highly doubt the quality of chances he's going to get, and particularly away from home. Away from home, Watford scored just the 30% of their goals away from home last year in the championship, which makes me wonder
35%.
that that number is going to basically drop, or even if it stays the same, that's a significant drop off, and you'd not want that from an attacker that you invest in for FPL. This is why I think there are better options to take advantage of. I mean, Adama, I'm considering him because when you look at his numbers over the first 3 game weeks, I'm just going to mention his league rank among midfielders: second for shots, third for shots inside the box, fifth for big chances, fifth for XG, third for XGI, second for penalty area chances, and top for chances created. Now I know for a fact that he can't finish, and he has had a Premier League best season of just 4 goals. And it might sound crazy to invest in him, but I mean the fixtures over the long run are so good that surely you'd back him even with his poor finishing, given how well Wolves are playing and how attacking they are, that even someone like a Traore will eventually find the back of the net eventually. Having said that, why I'm still unsure between Ferran and Adama is because even though I like the Wolverhampton fixtures, I'm not exactly a huge fan of their next 2 fixtures. Now, Watford away is likely to be a tight game, in my opinion. Watford at home are resolute, and they won't give too many big chances away. They won't give space away to someone like an Adama. Similarly, Brentford. Now, Brentford have conceded just the 2 big chances, which is basically the second lowest in the league. And I think during that spell, someone like a Ferran, if he starts, he could outscore him significantly, which is why I'm leaning towards Ferran at the moment.
In my head, Bakar, Ferran versus Traore is a no contest. In my head.
Yeah, I mean the only reason for going Adama is because he's more of a long-term pick, while Ferran is like the kind of guy you might have to get rid of in a few weeks. And this is actually pertinent for me because I don't have a bench, and I it's important because if by any chance Adama Ferran misses out.
But what I also want to tell you is, Bakar, you have a wild card. You have a get out of jail card free. You get out of jail free card in your back pocket. So keep that in mind as well. Because you're looking to wild card in game week 7 anyway. Preponing that by a game week or 2 in case shit hits the roof, I think it's fine.
That's a fair argument. Yeah, that's a fair argument. I can't refute that.
I want to put for the Sar thing is Callum Wilson and goal involvement. Ultimately, these teams matter. The thing is, there's no point having you can get a Jack Grealish who's going to get an assist when your team scores 5 goals, or you can get like a Sar who's going to get most likely the only goal that your team scores.
And from what I've seen of Grealish, that trend is actually likely to continue, given how wide he's playing. And the second point, Pranil, you were mentioning Rafinha. I completely agree. If there was one guy I was picking at that price range, it would honestly be Rafinha. I know he hasn't sort of delivered according to expectations so far, but honestly, he's still posting good numbers. I won't be too concerned with even with his recent blanks. I think he's gonna come good sooner rather than later. Even this year he's had he just needs to improve his finishing. This calendar he's had 6 big chances. He's missed 5 of them. Now, I mean, this is something you'd be tearing your hair out, and I've owned him for the majority of this year, last season and this season, and I almost feel like tearing my hair out. It's just that you can just hope that he improves on his finishing, and his teammates sort of start putting away the chances that he's creating, because he is still creating a huge amount of chances.
Before we move on, I just have to read out the tweet that Luke Disable tweeted to you in response to the Adama Traore rankings, and I thought it was just fabulous. So Bakar did this tweet where he was talking about Adama's rankings, where he's second for shots, third for shots in the box, fifth for XG, third for XGI. Luke just tweeted replying to that. That's like hanging out with a bunch of porn stars only to watch them bang the other actors. I think that sums Adama Traore up like perfectly. That's all. That's all. I just don't know if finishing can be coached. That's all.
Should we move on to the mids?
No, I think we talk about one price point, the 5.5 million price point. ESR versus Gray. Where do you lean?
Nowhere, honestly. Gray, I know he's popular in some of the wildcards, and Everton's fixtures are good. Burnley, Villa, Norwich in the next three. But honestly, I think he's overperformed. He's had just the 2 shots inside the box, combined XG of 0.2. Despite that, he scored twice. He's had 2 goals. I just don't think he's going to keep up. I don't think he's going to be value even at 5.5. And the problem if you invest in him on a wild card is that you don't have anywhere else to go at that price point.
You have ESR.
Do you think ESR
I mean, I'm
is
not
nailed?
too convinced. I'm not too convinced.
With Odegaard in the team, your Laka, everybody, it's Pepe, it's everybody fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's nailed. And based on performance only, watching the first 3 Arsenal games, especially that Brentford game, I thought he was their best player on the pitch. And it's all I've almost felt bad for him because I wish he had other better players to play with because he's been great. But Saka's fit, Pepe should be fit. Somebody in the chat mentioned that ESR might have an illness, so something to worth monitoring. But I think, again, great on of fixtures for the midterm at 5.5 million. I don't think ESR is a bad bet. I think he's 5.4 million now. He's gone down in price. None of y'all, just a couple of picks before we move on that nobody's interested in at the moment. Nobody's mentioned, and I think they need to be looked at. Both of y'all know Benrahma. Drop him on wildcard.
Interesting question.
I think so.
Probably.
I think I would.
Probably.
The fixtures are still there for West Ham. Southampton away, United home, Leeds away, Brentford home, Everton away. That's not too bad. And West Ham are...
It's not bad.
And West Ham
It could go horribly wrong. I mean, this is the kind of decision that could go horribly wrong, but I'd probably take a chance and get rid of him. I
just think it's the shiny toy syndrome there. Because West Ham are playing great
maybe.
football.
I mean, as I said, it's a tough decision. Yeah, I mean, his numbers are decent as well for someone of his price. I don't know. I mean, there's Vlasic coming in. I don't think he's going to come in straight away. I think Moyes is probably going to ease him in, but that might be a problem. After 3 or 4 game weeks for Benrahma if Vlasic sort of tends to show some form.
Yeah. If somebody fancies a little bit of a gamble, I also like Fornals as a pick a lot. I think he's been West Ham's best player in attack. He's tying that attack up together. I called him out before the last pod as well. I think he's you're making a small saving on Benrahma as well. He's in and around the box. I quite like Fornals' pick. And Zoph, last person in midfield I want to talk about, but before we move on, glue guy Mason Mount keeps delivering. Everybody keeps forgetting him.
Get him in game week 8 or game week 7. Probably not now.
The only reason I won't get him in is because of the argument that you presented earlier that we exactly don't know which 3 people. I mean, doubling up on defense might be a better option, right? So this is why. I mean, there are other options at that price to be had.
You're not getting as explosive defenders or that good defenders everywhere. You're getting good mids at other teams. So
exactly. And while we're doing this, we have over 1,000 people watching live. So thank you everyone for the support. Please like the video if you haven't already.
And before we move on to the strikers, Zoph, I think you can just put the
FCA
plugin now as well.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Bakar, canvas for votes.
Yes. We've been nominated for the FCA Football Content Awards in the Best Podcast category. So if you haven't voted, please get voting and vote for the FPL Wire as the best podcast of the year.
You can go to footballcontentawards.com/voting, and we've been nominated in the Best Podcast category in the Best in Fantasy Football section. Yeah, I was watching you closely there, Bakar. This is a future career option for you. So I wanted to know if you are doing it correctly.
Oh, okay.
That's what he says. Okay, not denying at all that he's looking at politics as an option.
Of course. Imran Bhai is waiting in the wings. Imran Bhai is waiting.
Yeah.
So let's speed it up. If we're already 90 minutes in, I think this is going to be our longest podcast so far. So let's just
I think we can wrap it up after. Okay, let's speed it up then. Chalo.
let's talk about some the forwards. Cool. I think Antonio, no brainer, nothing to really talk
Yeah.
about. You wouldn't.
Yeah,
There's no
don't
way
get it
you'd
on wildcard at all.
forwards. Ronaldo or
Okay.
Lukaku. Go ahead, Bakar. Something you wanted to
I
talk
think, I
about?
think I think we'll discuss this Ronaldo. What I wanted to say is that what's pertinent is that this is another very popular dilemma and a commonly asked question. A lot of people are actually saying that the saving of someone like Jimenez over Calvert-Lewin allows for significant upgrades elsewhere. Would you guys be willing to do it?
I'll answer this question because I was actually looking at it because I'm also
Hmm.
switching up Ings and Kane for Ronaldo and a striker, and I have money to spend on a striker. And I was looking for reasons to invest in Jimenez because Wolves are a much more attacking team than a Benitez's Everton, but it's just lack of information at the moment, right? I don't know how Wolves are going to be against defenses that seat, which is why DCL is more of a sure thing, which is why my ranking would be Antonio. Let's talk about mid-price brackets. We'll have the Ronaldo versus Lukaku conversation later. Antonio first. At second, I would have DCL. I do not mind if you're spending midfield spots on non-Leeds players, going Bamford up front as well because you know what you're getting. He's a sure thing as well. So it's going to be between DCL and Bamford. The argument I'm making for Bamford is a Leeds is a much more attacking team compared to Everton. And Bamford did get what 180 odd points. Great run of fixtures in the midterm. So I think you make that pick between DCL and Bamford. I think Bamford is a shoot pick, and at number 3, I'd have Jimenez.
I agree. He's going under the radar as well. Great numbers last season.
Yeah. You agree with the order? Then I think we can just move on. Zoph, you agree with the order?
What was the order again? Did you put Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez, and
Bamford,
And
Jimenez,
and
Bamford.
Antonio at number 2, it was DCL and Bamford. You take the pick because I think Bamford is as good a pick. And at number 3, it's Jimenez.
I completely agree.
probably that. I think in terms of budget, guys, who else? No, there's nobody else in the below that bracket, 7, 6, and all that stuff.
There are 2 players that people are looking at. There's Timo Pukki and there is Adam Armstrong that people are looking at. The only thing worth mentioning is that wait before you move on DCL because he opted out of the England squad because of an injury problem as well. So wait until we get a confirmation. He's been playing with a toe stub in the first 3 game weeks as well. So we don't know if he's fully fit. Just wait for that bit of information before jumping on.
Yep, there's not really. I think a DCL, if fit, I think he's somebody who can really do well over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, agreed. And I just think if you're looking at more long term, I think both DCL and Bamford are good picks. I can't split them at the moment. I think
Bamford probably
Bamford
only
is,
because you can have. I know we're talking about baskets, etc., etc. Only because you can possibly get Rafinha, who you could
yeah,
argue is as good as an asset at a cheaper price point. That
yeah,
probably
probably.
Bamford
But
bit lower.
having seen that Burnley game, it was just that Bamford seemed more talismanic and central to everything that was happening. There was a little worry in my head in the first 3 game weeks of Rodrigo eating into Bamford's minutes and everything. I don't see it happening at the moment. I think Bamford's a level above. Confidence might be high after that England call up as well. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, Rodrigo Bamford actually doesn't work very well. We need
Doesn't
Click
work
playing
very
with
well.
him.
Yeah. I don't think they've effectively replaced Hernandez after he's left. I think that position they're still moving around a few things. That's all. If you're looking for a budget striker between Pukki and Adam Armstrong, where would you go?
Okay, because the fixtures are really good for Norwich, and this is something I actually wanted to mention in the last section. We were talking about a grey exit route. Norwich have a great run of fixtures coming up, and you can possibly go for a Rashika or a Cantwell from a grey if that doesn't work out. Because from like let's say game week 5, you had Norwich have Watford, Everton, Burnley, Brighton, Chelsea, Leeds, Brentford. Not bad.
All right. And Bakar, who
I,
do you like
I'd
from
go.
the budget?
I'd go. I think Armstrong is hands down the best pick, honestly.
Just because you think he's the better player?
Better team also, right?
Better player.
And
Better player.
in a
Better.
better team, better
Yeah.
player, better team, likely to get more chances, more selfish actually, which is
Yeah.
very important. I like the fact that he is greedy in front of goal.
Also, Puki's been getting subbed off around the
Last
70th,
game, yeah.
75th. He's getting a little old. So I think that is something that factors into your decision making as well. All right, let's move on.
Let's do a quick
What are
preview
we
for
talking?
game week 4.
Yeah, let's do a quick preview for game week 4. Lot of good captaincy options. If you are not having a Ronaldo in game week 4 as your captain, I wouldn't panic. I think Mo Salah against Leeds is a great captaincy bet. Lukaku versus Aston Villa, probably without Emi Martinez and Emi Bundia. Do we have information yet whether they're going to be playing in game week 4? I know they're flying back. Any
They're
ideas of?
definitely not playing game week 4. Game week 5 is the concern. Game week 4, they're definitely out.
So that's a good captaincy option. Bruno Fernandes is a good captaincy option. I'm probably going to be on Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah.
No. Probably, I think Bruno is a decent shout as well. Don't have to look
Agreed.
too far beyond Bruno.
Bakar?
Anything?
No, not really. I agree. Ronaldo is the best shout in my opinion. Bruno would be my second, Salah third.
Let me ask you guys something quick. Pick me 3 clean sheet bankers this week.
Bankers. Luke Shaw.
I tell you what the odds
United?
are saying.
No.
Yeah.
I know what the odds are saying, but I want something beyond that, right? So
I'd look at United. I'd look at. I'm not confident about Spurs against Palace. Palace showed something in that game against West Ham. Even Norwich,
think they'll
by the way,
score.
showed something in that game against Leicester. They were pretty good against Leicester.
yeah,
Just
it's a
watching that
6-pointer
game.
now for Norwich.
Yeah.
I'd go safe with Man United, Chelsea, and Man City.
Yeah, Man United, Chelsea, and if I had to call a third team, I'd say Arsenal.
I'd like to hear that
think
as a white on a. What about Everton?
Yeah. Everton, who
Yes,
did they play?
I really like their numbers as well. Just the 2 big chances conceded so far, and the goals they've conceded have been down to individual errors, right? So, and even this game week against Brighton, I noticed that they just restricted Brighton to just the 5 shots inside the box. So they are posting good numbers defensively. I think Everton could keep a clean sheet, but when you say banker, I don't think that's a banker.
Bakar, what are Dean's chance creation numbers like this season so far? Any idea?
He's taking they are, yes, I looked at the numbers. They aren't great, but he's taking corners, which is great because that sort of tells me that he is going to create chances in the weeks to come. Townsend isn't sort of taking the significant majority of them. Dini is taken like 9 out of 11.
But he's relying a lot on those set pieces for his chance creation. In terms of the actual numbers from open play, he's down from last season. He's clearly stifled a little bit under Benitez. He's not creating as many as he was last year in terms of. I think last year he was always consistently third or fourth.
Exactly, but the thing is that with Dean, now that he's on corners, even if he creates just the 2 or 3 big chances, just the 2 or 3 chances a game, he can get a good share of the bonus just because of his chance creation.
Cool. I think we seem to have lost you on video. You'll probably be back. Okay, there you go, back again.
Yeah, I'm back.
Cool. Anything else to discuss? Yeah, let's just move to our teams now. Then we can do a Q&A.
I'll move Zoph. I'll move my team and head out. There's a little bit of an emergency that's happened, so I'll just finish my team and I can move out, and you guys can continue the Q&A.
Cool.
So yeah, in my team, just for the benefit of my listeners as well, I have Sanchez as keeper. I have Trent, Shaw, and Webster in defense. I have Salah, Greenwood, Rafinha, and Benrahma in midfield, and I have Kane, Ings, and Antonio up front. I'm looking at a 4-point hit. I'm looking at Kane and Ings out. Probably looking at Ronaldo and DCL in at the moment. I could maybe get tempted to maybe get Jimenez in, but I think my likely moves are going to be DCL and Ronaldo in. I'm going to wait until Ole's presser, and I'm going to take your leave right now, guys. At the moment, there's just something that's come up. So good luck this game week, and see you guys. Take care.
See you, man. Take care.
Let's just talk about your team next, Bakar. We are very similar. I think we just have Dean and White different this week. So what are your plans?
Yep. For the benefit of our audio listeners, I have Sanchez in goal, Trent, Shaw, Dean in defense. In midfield, I have Fernandes, Benrahma, Salah, Greenwood, and Rafinha. Up front, I have Ings and Antonio. My likely moves are I'm going to bring in Ronaldo and captain him. I'm going to sell Ings for Ronaldo, and Bruno will be the guy to make way to fund that move. Whether or not I sell him for Ferran or Adama, I haven't really made my mind up. But I think I'm likely to go with Ferran. What about you, Zoph?
I think that's where I'm going as well. 'Cause I'm very tempted by Sar, and if Varane, let's say, plays 90 tomorrow against with Spain, that would sort of set alarm bells ringing in my head. Because then you start looking at the Champions League tie with Leipzig. You expect him to miss one of the next three games, right? If he, let's say, he starts for Spain and then he plays, then you'd expect him to miss one of Leicester, Leipzig, Southampton, right?
So if he starts tomorrow, let me put a gun to your head. Will you get him or not?
Probably not. I'd probably go for Sar then. I have a very good feeling about Sar. I know you're not keen on him, but I have a good feeling about
Yeah.
him for the next few.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. So you're basically willing to wait before you see tomorrow, and in case he doesn't start, then I'm assuming you're gonna get Farhan in.
Yeah, because as much as I like to say Farhan is a long-term pick, anytime you want a transfer, you do a transfer, you still want some instant gratification, right? You don't want to bring in Torres. You can say, oh, Torres is a long-term pick. He's going to start post games.
Yeah.
But when I buy someone, I want to get some points that week.
I'm not sure he's a long-term pick. That's the thing. Because if he continues to do well, then he becomes a long-term pick. Right? It's basically like Greenwood was at the start of the season. We know he's going to start, but if he doesn't perform, then he could be out of the team in no time. I mean, there's Sterling, Mahrez waiting in the wings, Foden, De Bruyne are ready to come in. I mean, if he has one bad game, he could easily get
Yeah.
dropped.
And there's also
I
the
don't think he's a
Firmino.
long-term
I
transfer.
agree. And there's also the Firmino news I'm waiting for. If, let's say, we hear that Firmino is out for 3 to 4 weeks, I don't mind taking a -8 that is going to involve shipping Shimikas out also, because all it takes is 1 goal and 3 bonus points for Jota alone to repay the hit.
Now this
Even
is interesting, right? Because yeah, this as a Simicast owner myself, absorbing that point one drop and then having to drop him from a -8 would be very very painful. But I might consider it, right? In that position if Firmino's out for a few weeks, and I think that he could do well as well. I noticed that Leeds are conceding an abnormal amount of chances through the center. They've conceded the most number of chances this season through the center. So if Jota plays there and starts, I think he's going to do well.
Exactly. So that's one thing I'm going to monitor. So I'll just run through my team also quickly. It's the same team as Bakar, except with so it's Sanchez, Shaw, Trent, White instead of Dean, Greenwood, Bruno, Salah, Rafinha, Benrahma midfield, Ings, Antonio. Likely transfer is going to be Fernandez out for Torres, Jota, or Sar, with Ings out for Ronaldo, captain. So it will be dependent on team news. Right. Let's open up the floor for the Q&A, guys. Thank you for being so patient. Let's just send your questions in. I'm going to open up the chat now.
Zoph, will you be taking the questions?
Yeah, I'll pull up the question. I'm just pulling out the chat now. You can do this. Are you in a rush?
No, let's do this for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
let's
fine.
just do 10 minutes. People have been waiting for quite some time. Right. The questions are coming in. Is Bruno, Tony, and Ings to DCL Ronaldo and any 6.5 mid or below midfielder for the next 4 weeks until wildcard for a -4 worth it? I think
Absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can add Rafinha for that 6.5 mid slot if he's not going to be suspended. And I think that's a great move. What else? Jota 100% in during wildcard. Again, dependent on team news. If Firmino is out for a limited amount of time, ignore Jota, right?
Yep. Also, I have a question for you, Zoph, regarding Ferran. Assuming that you didn't have your wildcard in hand, would you be considering him or not?
I think so. I don't think it should make a difference whether you have a wild card or not. Ultimately, minutes are going to be the thing, and I want him to start against Leicester. So that Spain game lineup is really going to be big for me in terms of the Torres consideration.
Fair enough, because this is the thing at the back of my mind. In case I get it wrong with Farhan, I mean I have a wild card up my sleeve to get rid of.
To fix it, correct. So we have a super chat from Dennis Koshi. Would you take a -8 for Ronaldo and Torres in for Bruno and Barnes? It's interesting because probably.
So I'm assuming.
I'd say yes.
I'd say yes as well, because I'm assuming he's already used his free transfer somewhere else. So
correct.
I think this is again dependent on if we get team news that Farhan isn't starting tomorrow, then I think this makes sense.
Correct.
because we already discussed that the Ronaldo move for Bruno for a hit is worth a hit in isolation.
Correct. We also have a super chat from regular listener Nehal. Thank you.
Thank you, Nahil.
Bruno Barnes Inks to Jota CR7 Farhan for -4. I said especially if like you again Firmino news, right? If Firmino news
Yep,
goes back to the Jota thing, otherwise the moves are great. If not,
yep.
if who's he selling Bruno? If Firmino looks short term, then I would suggest Sar. Who do you suggest Bakar as an alternative there?
If he doesn't have Rafinha, then Rafinha. If he has
Oh
Rafinha,
yeah,
then Traore.
Rafinha. I keep forgetting about Rafinha. I
Yeah.
just assume everyone has Rafinha. Replacement for Simicas if you decide to bring in Jota. Let's just keep it for like 4.4, 4.5. Who do you like?
Ben White, I think.
White, right? It's just good long-term
Yeah.
pick, good bench pick also to keep as a
Yep,
first sub.
definitely.
When will Ronaldo's price be unlocked? So usually the thing is, it's a 8-day minimum lock. There's nothing. It's a bit ambiguous until the length of the maximum lock. It could be locked until the game week deadline. It could be unlocked, I'd say, even as soon as tomorrow. We don't know for sure. What to do with Mahrez? Sell?
Obviously, sell.
Easy.
Jesus is playing really, really well, and I think he's secured his spot at least for the next couple of games.
Mhm. Rafinha over Gray, 100%. Definitely
Absolutely, yeah.
Rafinha over Gray. What's your take on Havertz? The thing is now, Mount and Lukaku are probably going to be playing most of the games. I don't think Havertz is worth it at that price. I think you can get better, more nailed options. Then we
Zoph, you
have,
have a super chat.
yes, from Albas89. Would you start Veltman or White this week? Or would you do first squad Veltman or White? Probably White.
Yep, White. The odds agree with this as well.
Would you do Bruno and Tony to Ronaldo for Jota for -4 or just Tony to DCL? Again, if Jota depends on the Firmino news, as we keep saying.
Yep, exactly. And if we get news that Firmino's out for 3 to 4 weeks, then yes, take the hit.
Definitely do it. If not, get in Rafinha. Depending also on the Brazil news, I guess. So you have to wait till Friday.
Correct.
Somebody's asking about a Wolves defender. We already covered that on detail.
Semedo, I think.
Yeah, and we've already covered that, so nothing much. Where does Daniel James fit in? Interesting question. Some people are speculating that Rafinha will be pushed central. I don't think so. I think they've loaned Poveda, they've loaned Costa out. I think James is going to be as an impact sub initially. What's your thoughts?
It's tough to say, I mean, I can't see Rafinha sort of dropping out of the team completely. He might play number 10. He's too good to, for someone new to come in to affect his game time. I'm sure he's going to start. Whether or not he does it in the number 10 position or on the right is open to speculation. But I won't I won't let that put me off buying him, honestly.
Agree. Is taking KN out for CR7 worth it? That's exactly what Pranil is doing this week, Debabrat. So
100%, I'd do it. Yeah.
I would say it's probably worth it, especially because there's rumors that Son might be injured. That's a big supply line that's cut off for Kane as well.
Yep. There's a guy asking sell Ings or Tony, higher priority. I'd sell Ings because he's pricier and because his numbers are worse. And I think there are much better options to be had at that price range.
At that price, 100% agree there.
Yeah.
Worth unloading Vardy for Lukaku for -4 or hold on. But I'm not too impressed by Leicester. I'd make the move.
Yep, I agree.
One more. Let's just do a couple more. That's it. This is from Kamzi. I have Grealish and DCL. Who do you keep? DCL out would be free. Grealish out would be a -4 to bring in Jota and Ronaldo. It's an interesting question. So it basically comes out, would you keep DCL or you want DCL or Ronaldo? They're both great picks.
I mean, for when it comes to captaincy, I think we've got to prioritize Ronaldo.
I think you definitely have to prioritize Ronaldo. I agree. Cool. Should we
Okay,
wrap
I have
up?
Ben White. Any other last question? I have Ben White. Any other replacement for Simicas? I think you can go with Livramento, assuming you don't have him.
Yep. I think that's it. Let's
I
wrap
think
up.
that should be wraps off.
Let's
We've
wrap
been
up.
going on for long.
Yep,
Yep.
almost 2 hours now. Pleasure talking to you, Bakar. We had some tech problems at the start. Glad we got through
Apologies
them with
everyone
you.
for the tech problems initially, but we hope you had a good listen to our podcast, and thank you for supporting us, and good luck for the game week.
Good luck. And we just have one last super chat. I'll just get this in really quick. Bruno Ings, please don't send any more super chats, guys. We got to close up. Bruno Ings Simicas out for Ronaldo, Varane, and Rudiger for -8. Looks good. Again, monitor Varane's game time tomorrow. Rudiger should start this weekend.
Yeah, I think
Ronaldo,
they're
I
good
guess you
moves.
probably captain. But do you really need to do that Shimikas move out? It depends, I guess, who else he's playing in defense over Rudiger. Because the thing is with Rudiger, the next two fixtures again are not too great, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd probably delay
But
the
I
hex.
guess if he's taking a hit, it's for the long term. So I mean, I'm
Correct, but
not against it.
it all depends on who he's bringing in necessarily, or who's playing instead of Rudiger. Cool. And if we can go on
Exactly.
forever at this rate. Thank you
All
again,
right.
everyone, for joining
Thank you,
us. We'll
everyone.
see you next
See
week.
you soon.